Ambassador Zeekstal was enjoying his morning meal when the emergency alert screamed through his quarters. The blue-skinned hegemony diplomat nearly choked on his protein paste as red warning lights bathed his office in urgent crimson. His 4 eyes darted to the communication screen as it flickered to life. Ambassador. The voice belonged to Scout Captain Veltar, and she sounded terrified. You need to see this immediately. We have a code red situation in the Vortha Nebula sector. Zeekstal's stomach dropped. The Vortha Nebula was contested space, claimed by 3 different species, but controlled by none. It was a dangerous region, where only the bravest, or most foolish, dared to travel. What kind of situation, Captain? A human warship, sir. But it's not just any human ship. It's moving in a formation we haven't seen for thousands of years. The screen shifted to show grainy footage from a deep space probe. Zeekstal leaned forward, his diplomatic training keeping his expression neutral even as his hearts began to race. There, against the swirling purple gases of the nebula, moved a single human vessel. The ship was sleek and white, typical of human military design, but something about its movement made Zeekstal's skin crawl. The ship wasn't just flying through space, it was dancing. Every few seconds, the vessel would shift its position in small, precise movements. Its engines fired in carefully timed bursts. Energy fields flickered around its hull in patterns that seemed almost alive. Most disturbing of all, the ship's weapons were moving in slow, deliberate arcs, as if tracking invisible enemies. Captain Veltar, Zeekstal said slowly, are you certain about what you're seeing? Yes, sir. We ran the movement patterns through our database 3 times. The computer keeps giving us the same match. It's the apex predator formation. The words hit Zeekstal like a physical blow. He had studied galactic history for over 2 centuries. He knew exactly what the apex predator formation meant. The last time anyone had seen this formation, entire star systems had burned. Send this footage to the Council immediately, he ordered. Emergency priority. And, Captain? Yes, sir? Double your patrol distance from that sector. Do not, under any circumstances, approach the human vessel. Minutes later, Zeekstal stood in the emergency session chamber of the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular room, their voices creating a cacophony of concern and confusion. At the center of the chamber, a massive hologram displayed the human ship's movements on repeat. Fleet Admiral Kethara of the Confederation was the first to speak. The tall, pale alien's tentacles writhed with agitation as she addressed the assembly. Members of the Council, what we are witnessing should be impossible. The formation you see here was perfected by the Vorthak Empire over 12,000 years ago. A wave of nervous sounds swept through the chamber. Even species that had joined the Council recently knew the stories of the Vorthok. They were the monsters that parents used to frighten children across 100 worlds. The Vorthok are extinct, called out Representative Thorks of the Mining Guild. They have been dead for millennia. Yes, Admiral Kethara agreed, but their techniques were not supposed to survive them. The apex predator formation requires a level of skill and technology that took the Vorthok centuries to develop. It allows a single ship to engage multiple enemies simultaneously while maintaining near-perfect defensive capabilities. On the hologram, the human ship continued its deadly dance. Every movement was perfect. Every energy pulse timed to the microsecond. It was like watching a master craftsman at work. Except the craft was war. How did the humans learn this? Demanded Council Speaker Orthion, his crystalline form pulsing with orange worry light. Have they discovered Vorthok ruins, ancient databases? This knowledge was supposed to be lost forever. Zeekstal studied the footage more carefully. The human ship was designated as the Defiant Resolve, according to their probe scans. It was a standard human heavy cruiser. Nothing particularly special about its design, but the way it moved spoke of incredible training and preparation. Perhaps, suggested Dr. Mintara of the Research Collective, the humans have independently developed similar techniques. We know they are creative problem solvers. Admiral Kethara's tentacles snapped with dismissal. Impossible. The mathematical complexity alone would require thousands of years of development. The Vorthok were master warriors from birth. They lived for battle. Humans have only been in space for what? 300 years? 237 years since first contact, corrected the Council's historical database. The correction made the situation even more terrifying. In less than 2.5 centuries, humans had somehow acquired or developed techniques that had taken the galaxy's greatest warriors over a millennium to perfect. What are the humans saying about this? Asked Representative Velkos of the Trade Federation. Nothing, Zixtal replied. Our monitoring stations show normal human military communications in that sector. They don't seem to realize we're watching them, or they don't care, Admiral Kethara said grimly. The hologram continued to loop the human ship's movements. With each repetition, the formation looked more threatening. The way the ship positioned itself, the timing of its maneuvers, the careful coordination of its systems, it was all exactly as the Vorthak had done it. The same terrifying efficiency that had once reduced entire fleets to burning wreckage. We need more information, Council Speaker Orthyan declared. I want every deep space probe redirected to monitor human movements. If they have more ships using these formations, we need to know immediately. And if they do? Asked Dr. Mintara quietly. The question hung in the air like a curse. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it aloud. If the humans had truly mastered Vorthok techniques, if they had ships capable of executing the apex predator formation, then the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. The Vorthok Empire had conquered 70% of known space before their mysterious disappearance. They had been unstoppable, ruthless, and absolutely terrifying in their efficiency. The idea that humans might be following the same path was enough to make even the bravest council members consider updating their emergency evacuation plans. Continue monitoring, Zixtal said finally. But prepare for the possibility that everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was wrong. As the emergency session ended, representatives filed out in worried clusters, speaking in hushed tones about ancient nightmares returning to haunt the galaxy. None of them noticed the small detail that would have changed everything. The human ship's transponder clearly identified it as part of a merchant convoy protection detail, and its logs showed it was simply running a standard defensive patrol pattern. The emergency council session had been called for the second time in as many days. Representatives filled the chamber once again, but this time, the mood was different. Fear had replaced confusion. Hard intelligence had replaced speculation. Council Speaker Orthyan's crystalline form pulsed with deep red urgency as he called the session to order. The situation has escalated. Chief Historian Resonance of Ages will brief us on the historical implications of what we witnessed. The ancient crystalline entity materialized in the center of the chamber. Resonance of Ages was old beyond measure, one of the few beings alive who remembered the Vorthak campaigns firsthand. When the massive crystal spoke, its voice carried the weight of millennia. Members of the Council, what I am about to show you has been classified for over 10,000 years. The footage was deemed too dangerous for general knowledge, too terrifying for most species to comprehend. The air above the entity shimmered, and holographic images began to form. The first showed a beautiful star system with 7 inhabited worlds. Billions of beings lived and worked on planets covered with gleaming cities. The Keth-Moran system, Resonance of Ages explained. Home to the peaceful collective. Population: 4 billion souls. They were traders and artists, known throughout the galaxy for their poetry and music. The image shifted to show the same system 3 days later. The planets were dark, lifeless rocks. Debris fields marked where space stations had once orbited. The beautiful cities were nothing but glowing craters. The Vorthok fleet that destroyed this system consisted of exactly 7 ships. They used coordinated apex predator formations to eliminate the system's defenses in less than 6 hours. Gasps and horrified sounds echoed through the chamber. Many representatives had never seen actual footage of Vorthok destruction. The stories were bad enough, but the reality was worse. How is that possible? Demanded Representative Thorks. 7 ships against an entire star system? The apex predator formation is not simply a tactical arrangement. the historian continued. It is a complete integration of warfare technologies. Watch carefully. The hologram showed Vorthok ships moving through space in the same deadly dance they had witnessed from the human vessel. But now, they could see the full picture. Each ship generated multiple overlapping energy fields that created zones of impossible gravitational stress. Enemy vessels caught in these zones were crushed like insects. The formation creates artificial gravity wells, Admiral Kethara explained, her tentacles writhing with remembered terror. Ships using the formation can bend space around themselves, making them nearly impossible to target, while simultaneously trapping enemy vessels. But that's not all. Resonance of Ages continued. The formation also allows perfect weapon synchronization across multiple ships. Watch. The hologram showed a moment when 3 Vorthok vessels fired simultaneously at a large enemy dreadnought. Their weapons didn't just hit the target, they struck at precisely the right angles and timing to create a resonance cascade that tore the massive ship apart from the inside. Quantum field manipulation, breathed Dr. Mintara. They were using the target's own shields against it. Correct. The Vorthok spent over 800 years perfecting these techniques. They studied the quantum mechanics of space combat until they could predict exactly how energy would behave in any given situation. The Apex Predator formation was their masterwork, a fighting style that turned physics itself into a weapon. The images continued, showing battle after battle. In every case, the Vorthok ships moved with the same precise, deadly grace they had seen from the human vessel. The same perfect timing, the same impossible coordination. The formation requires more than just skill, the historian explained. It demands a level of mathematical understanding that few species possess. The pilots must calculate quantum field interactions, gravitational stresses, and energy resonances in real time while engaged in combat. How long did it take the Vorthok to learn this? Asked Ambassador Zixistal. Their historical records indicate approximately 1,200 years of development. They started with basic gravitational manipulation and gradually built up to the complete formation. Even then, only their most elite warriors could execute it properly. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vorthok had been natural warriors, bred for combat across dozens of generations. They had spent over a millennium developing their techniques, yet somehow, a human ship was executing their most advanced formation perfectly. Speaker, Admiral Kethara said formally, I need to share classified intelligence with the Council. Orthion's crystal form pulsed permission. Over the past year, our deep space monitoring stations have recorded 17 instances of human ships using advanced tactical formations. We initially classified them as experimental maneuvers, but in light of recent events, we've reanalyzed the data. New holograms appeared, showing various human ships in different locations. Each was moving in patterns that seemed familiar, but hadn't triggered alarms at the time. Formation Designation 7 appears to be standard for human convoy protection. Formation Designation 12 is used by their exploration vessels. Formation Designation 15 is employed by their medical ships. Medical ships? Dr. Mintara looked confused. Why would medical ships need combat formations? That's what concerns us, the Admiral replied. The humans appear to have integrated these techniques into every aspect of their space operations. It's not special elite units. It's their entire fleet. Representative Velkos leaned forward. Are you suggesting that all human ships can execute Vorthok formations? What we're suggesting, Admiral Kethara said grimly, is that the humans may have developed something beyond what the Vorthok achieved. They're not just copying ancient techniques. They appear to have made them routine. The thought was terrifying. The Vorthok had been conquerors, their entire civilization built around warfare. Yet even they had only taught their most advanced formations to elite units. If humans had made these same techniques standard operating procedure across their entire fleet, how is this possible? Asked Council Speaker Orthion. The humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries. How could they develop in 200 years what took the Vorthok over 1,000? Unknown, admitted the Admiral. But we have confirmed that human ships are becoming more sophisticated rapidly. Their tactical evolution is accelerating exponentially. Dr. Mintara pulled up her own data. According to our trade records, human technology has been advancing at unprecedented rates. They went from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 100 years. Most species take at least 500 years to achieve the same progression. And now they're apparently mastering techniques that required the galaxy's greatest warriors over a millennium to develop. Zeekstal added quietly. The chamber was heavy with dread. Every representative was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to voice it. The Vorthok had started as explorers and traders too. They had seemed peaceful enough at first, but their rapid technological advancement had eventually led them down a dark path of conquest and domination. "What do we do?" asked Representative Thorks finally. It was the question everyone dreaded, because there was no good answer. They couldn't demand that humans stop using these formations without revealing their own fear and weakness. They couldn't acquire the techniques themselves without potentially destabilizing the entire galactic balance of power. And they couldn't ignore the possibility that humanity was following the same path that had made the Vorthok the most feared species in galactic history. "We watch," Council Speaker Orthian said finally. "We gather more intelligence, and we prepare for the possibility that we are witnessing the rise of the next great galactic power." Or, Admiral Kethara added quietly, "the return of our oldest nightmare." Captain Sarah Chen was reviewing supply manifests when Lieutenant Kowalski burst onto the bridge of the Defiant Resolve. The young communications officer looked like he had seen a ghost. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. Emergency diplomatic protocol. They want an immediate response." Sarah looked up from her tablet, frowning. "The Council? We're in neutral space. What could they possibly want with us?" "I think you need to read this yourself, ma'am." Sarah took the message pad and began reading. With each line, her frown deepened. The message was full of diplomatic language, but the meaning was clear enough. The Council was demanding to know where humans had learned forbidden ancient techniques, and whether the use of such techniques represented an act of aggression against galactic peace. "This has to be some kind of mistake," Sarah muttered. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, front and center. Her tactical officer jogged over from his station. Miguel Rodriguez had been with Sarah for 3 years, and she trusted his judgment completely. "Yes, Captain? The Galactic Council seems to think we're using something called forbidden ancient techniques." "Any idea what they're talking about?" Rodriguez scratched his head. "Ancient techniques? Captain, we're running standard convoy protection protocols. Formation Delta 7. Just like the manual says. That's what I thought." Sarah looked at the message again. "They specifically mention our movement patterns and something called the Apex Predator Formation. Does that mean anything to you?" "Never heard of it, ma'am. Want me to pull up our flight logs?" "Do it." Rodriguez returned to his station and began typing. Within minutes, he had their complete movement data displayed on the main screen. "Here we are, Captain. For the past 6 hours, we've been running Formation Delta 7, exactly as prescribed for convoy protection in contested space." Sarah studied the display. Their flight pattern looked perfectly normal to her. The ship had been moving in careful arcs, adjusting position every few minutes to maintain optimal sensor coverage and defensive positioning. It was textbook escort duty. "What's special about Formation Delta 7? Sarah asked. "Remind me of the development history." Rodriguez pulled up another file. Formation Delta 7 was developed at the Naval War College about 18 months ago. Lieutenant Colonel Park's research team was trying to solve the convoy protection problem, how to protect multiple slow-moving cargo ships from pirate attacks. Enication. Right. I remember reading the paper. What was their approach? Pretty clever, actually. They analyzed gravitational physics and found that by positioning an escort ship in specific locations relative to the convoy, you could create overlapping fields that would disrupt pirate targeting systems. The constant micro-adjustments in position maintain the field integrity while keeping the escort vessel mobile enough to respond to threats. Sarah nodded. It made perfect sense from a defensive standpoint. And the weapons? Movements? Standard threat assessment protocols. The computer continuously tracks potential enemy positions and keeps our weapons trained on the most likely attack vectors. Basic precautionary measure. So let me get this straight, Sarah said slowly. We're running a defensive formation developed by our own war college, using techniques based on well-understood physics, and somehow the Galactic Council thinks this is ancient, forbidden knowledge? Seems that way, ma'am. Sarah looked at the Council's message again. The language was becoming clearer now that she understood what they were worried about. They weren't just concerned, they were terrified. The message spoke of devastating capabilities and techniques that could destabilize galactic civilization. Rodriguez, who else knows about Formation Delta 7? It's standard training at the academy now, ma'am. Every convoy escort learns it in their second year. Pretty much every merchant marine protection unit in the fleet uses some variation of it. This was getting more puzzling by the minute. If Formation Delta 7 was taught to every naval cadet, how could it be a forbidden ancient technique? Pull up the development notes, Sarah ordered. I want to see exactly how Park's team came up with this. The files appeared on screen, and Sarah began reading. The development process was exactly what she would have expected from human military researchers. They had started with a problem: how to protect slow, vulnerable cargo ships from fast, maneuverable attackers. Look at this. Rodriguez pointed to a section of the notes. They began by studying ancient Earth naval tactics. Apparently, Admiral Nelson used similar positioning strategies during the Napoleonic Wars. Interesting. What else? Gravitational physics analysis by Dr. Kim from the University of New Shanghai. Thousands of computer simulations. Field tests with volunteer pirate crews. Paid actors, of course. The whole development process took about 8 months. Sarah shook her head. 8 months to develop something the Galactic Council considers forbidden ancient knowledge. There's something we're missing here. She composed a response to the Council, explaining that Formation Delta 7 was standard human naval doctrine, developed independently through scientific analysis and testing. She stressed that it was a defensive formation designed to protect merchant shipping and had no aggressive applications. As she finished the message, her science officer, Commander Park, approached. Captain, I couldn't help overhearing the discussion. You mentioned the Council was concerned about ancient techniques? That's right. They seem to think our Formation Delta 7 is something called the Apex Predator Formation. Park looked thoughtful. That's an interesting name. Very aggressive sounding. May I see the flight data? Rodriguez transferred the information to Park's tablet. The science officer studied it for several minutes, occasionally making notes. Captain, this is fascinating. Our Formation Delta 7 does create some very sophisticated gravitational and energy field effects. The micro-adjustments in position generate exactly the kind of overlapping field patterns that would be ideal for, well, for a lot more than just convoy protection. What do you mean? Well, theoretically, if you scaled up the formation and coordinated it with other ships, you could create gravitational stress patterns that would be devastating to enemy vessels. The same fields we use to disrupt pirate targeting could be weaponized to actually destroy attacking ships. Sarah felt a chill. Are you saying the formation has offensive applications we didn't realize? I'm saying the formation has incredible potential that goes far beyond what we've been using it for. We've been using a Formula One race car to deliver pizza, but we developed it independently, Rodriguez protested. We didn't copy it from anyone. Exactly, Park agreed. Which means we stumbled onto something remarkable through pure scientific analysis. If another species developed similar techniques in the past, they would look identical to what we're doing, Sarah finished. The pieces were starting to fit together. Somewhere in galactic history, another species had developed similar formations. Judging by the Council's reaction, that species had used them for conquest, rather than convoy protection. Now the Council saw humans using the same techniques and assumed the worst. Captain, Commander Park said quietly, I've been thinking about our tactical development over the past few years. Formation Delta 7 isn't the only one we've created. What do you mean? We have Formation Alpha 3 for exploration missions. Formation Gamma 9 for medical evacuation. Formation Beta 12 for diplomatic escorts. We've been developing specialized formations for every situation we encounter. Sarah's stomach dropped. How many formations have we developed total? Park consulted his records. 17 active formations, with 12 more in development. And they're all based on the same gravitational and energy field principles? More or less, yes. We've been building on the same foundation, adapting it for different purposes. Sarah looked around her bridge. Her crew was going about their duties normally, completely unaware that their routine activities were causing panic across the galaxy. They had been developing what they considered basic tactical improvements, never realizing they might be recreating techniques that had once terrorized civilizations. Send the message to the Council, she ordered, but also request a diplomatic meeting. I think we need to have a much longer conversation about what they know and what we don't know. As the transmission went out, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was bigger than a simple misunderstanding. The Council's fear seemed too real, too immediate. Whatever ancient techniques they were thinking of, Formation Delta 7 apparently matched them perfectly, which raised a disturbing question. If humans could independently develop techniques that had once been used for conquest, what did that say about the inevitable direction of human tactical evolution? Intelligence Director Psylocke of the Confederacy stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, his pale features drawn with exhaustion. He had not slept in 3 days, not since Captain Chen's response had arrived. The human message had not brought relief. It had brought terror. Members of the Council, Psylocke began, his voice carefully controlled. The human response to our inquiry has been analyzed by our best xenopsychology experts. The conclusions are disturbing. Council Speaker Orthion's crystalline form pulsed with dim light. Explain. The humans claim they developed their techniques independently. They call it Formation Delta 7 and describe it as a defensive measure for protecting cargo convoys. They insist it was created through standard scientific analysis. That sounds reasonable, said Dr. Mintara hopefully. That's what makes it terrifying, Psylocke replied. Either the humans are lying with unprecedented skill, or they're telling the truth. Both possibilities are catastrophic. He activated the chamber's holographic display. If they're lying, then they have somehow acquired Vorthak technology and are deceiving us about its origins. This would mean they've been planning conquest while maintaining friendly diplomatic relations. And if they're telling the truth? Asked Ambassador Zixtal, though he already feared the answer. If they're telling the truth, then humans independently developed in 18 months what took the Vorthok over 1,000 years to perfect, and they did it as a routine defensive measure. The implications hung in the air like a poison cloud. Around the chamber, representatives shifted uncomfortably as they processed what this meant. Admiral Kethara brought up additional data. The situation has worsened since Captain Chen's response. Our monitoring stations have identified 43 human vessels using advanced formations in the past week alone. New holographic displays showed human ships across dozens of star systems. Each vessel moved with the same deadly precision they had first observed on the Defiant Resolve. Some were clearly military escort ships, but others defied easy categorization. This vessel, Admiral Kethara, highlighted a sleek blue ship, is listed as a medical transport. Yet it's executing formation pattern Gamma 9 with perfect precision. The gravitational fields it's generating could be used to tear apart pursuing vessels. Medical ships, Representative Thorx muttered. They're teaching attack formations to medical ships. It gets worse, Psylocke continued. Analysis of human communications traffic shows that these formations are taught at their military academy as standard curriculum. What we consider forbidden ancient knowledge, they consider basic training. The chamber erupted in concerned voices. Representatives called out questions and observations in a dozen languages. Council Speaker Orthion's light pulsed brighter, calling for order. Director Psylocke, what is your assessment of human intentions? Psylocke paused, choosing his words carefully. Based on traditional threat analysis, humans should be preparing for large-scale conquest. They have developed devastating military capabilities and integrated them throughout their fleet. However, their behavior patterns don't match typical conquest preparation. How so? They continue normal trade relations. They haven't withdrawn diplomats from Council space. They're not stockpiling military supplies or recalling civilian ships. In fact, they just opened 2 new cultural exchange programs and increased medical aid to 3 frontier colonies. This only made the situation more confusing. The Vorthok had been obvious in their intentions. They conquered openly and brutally. If humans were planning similar actions, they were being far more subtle about it. Perhaps, suggested Dr. Mintara, the humans truly don't understand what they've accomplished. Maybe they genuinely see these as simple defensive measures. That possibility may be worse, Admiral Kethara responded grimly. If humans can casually develop Vorthok-level techniques without even trying, what happens when they actually apply themselves to military advancement? Representative Velkos brought up another concern. Our economic analysis shows human technology advancing at an exponential rate. In 2 centuries, they've gone from chemical rockets to formations that rival our most ancient warfare techniques. At this rate of development, he didn't need to finish. Everyone in the chamber could do the math. If human advancement continued at current rates, they would surpass every other galactic civilization within a few centuries. And unlike previous technological advances in art or medicine, these particular developments were purely military in nature. There's something else, Psylocke added reluctantly. Our xenoarchaeology teams have been analyzing the formation patterns more closely. The mathematical principles underlying human techniques are not just similar to Vorthok methods, they're identical in several key areas. Meaning either the humans found Vorthok ruins and reverse-engineered the technology, or, he paused, clearly uncomfortable with the next possibility. Or what, Director? Or the mathematical laws governing efficient space combat are universal constants. If that's true, then any species that applies logical scientific analysis to warfare will eventually develop similar techniques. The chamber fell silent as the full implications sank in. If Psylocke was right, then the Vorthok formations weren't ancient secrets, they were natural evolutionary endpoints for any sufficiently advanced military science. Are you suggesting, Council Speaker Ortheon asked slowly, that any species could independently develop these capabilities? I'm suggesting that humans have demonstrated exactly that. And if they can do it, others might as well. The possibility sent waves of fear through the assembly. The Vorthok had been unique. A single species that had somehow developed impossible military capabilities. But if humans could reach the same level independently, then perhaps the Vorthok hadn't been as special as everyone believed. Perhaps they had simply been the first to follow logical military development to its ultimate conclusion. We need to make a decision, Admiral Kethara said firmly. The humans have requested a diplomatic meeting. How do we respond? The debate that followed was intense. Some representatives wanted to demand that humans immediately cease using advanced formations. Others suggested offering the humans full council membership in hopes of controlling their development. A few extremists even proposed preemptive military action, though this was quickly shouted down. We're missing something crucial, Ambassador Zixtal said during a brief lull in the argument. The humans don't seem to understand why we're concerned. Captain Chen's message read like someone genuinely confused by our reaction. Which brings us back to our original problem, Psylocke noted. Either they're incredibly skilled liars, or they truly don't comprehend what they've accomplished. There's a third possibility, Dr. Mintara said quietly, which is that human tactical thinking operates on fundamentally different principles than ours. Maybe what seems impossibly advanced to us is actually simple and obvious from a human perspective. This thought was perhaps most terrifying of all. If humans could casually develop techniques that challenged the greatest achievements of galactic military history, what did that say about the nature of human intelligence? Were they simply better at warfare than other species? Did they have some inherent advantage that made complex military strategies seem obvious? The meeting, Council Speaker Ortheon announced finally. We will agree to the diplomatic meeting, but with conditions. Full sensor monitoring, neutral location, and representatives from all major council factions. And our approach? Asked Admiral Kethara. We find out the truth. Whatever the cost, whatever the implications, We need to know whether humanity represents our greatest hope or our greatest threat. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiant Resolve, Captain Sarah Chen was reviewing reports that would have shocked the Council even more than they already were. Her science officer had compiled a list of formations currently in development by human naval research teams. The list contained 37 new tactical arrangements, each designed for specific scenarios ranging from asteroid mining protection to diplomatic escort duties. What the Council saw as an arsenal of conquest weapons, humans saw as a collection of useful tools. The disconnect between perception and reality was about to create the greatest diplomatic crisis in galactic history, or possibly prevent the greatest war. The diplomatic station at Meridian Point had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Captain Sarah Chen walked through the airlock into the neutral facility, followed by Commander Park and Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on any of them. This meeting could determine humanity's place in the galaxy. The main conference chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, designed to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species. Sarah's team took their seats across from the Galactic Council delegation, which included every major faction leader and several beings she didn't recognize. Council Speaker Orthion's crystalline form dominated the center of the chamber, pulsing with nervous blue light. Captain Chen, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I believe we have much to discuss. Thank you for having us, Sarah replied. Though I'll admit, we're still not entirely sure what this is about. Admiral Kethara leaned forward, her tentacles curled with tension. Captain, let me be direct. Your ship was observed executing what we call the Apex Predator Formation. This formation was last used by a species called the Vorthok, who nearly conquered the galaxy before their disappearance 12,000 years ago. Sarah exchanged glances with her officers. I've never heard of the Vorthok. We were running Formation Delta 7. A convoy protection protocol we developed ourselves. So you've stated. Intelligence Director, Psylocke interrupted. The question is how humans independently develop techniques identical to those used by history's most feared warriors. Commander Park cleared his throat. If I may, we brought complete documentation of our development process. He activated a portable holographic projector, displaying months of research data, simulation results, and testing protocols. As you can see, Formation Delta 7 emerged from applying basic gravitational physics to convoy protection problems. We analyzed successful defensive strategies from Earth's naval history, adapted them for three-dimensional space combat, and optimized the results through computer simulation. The alien representatives studied the data with growing amazement. The human development process was methodical, logical, and completely transparent. There were no gaps where ancient knowledge might have been inserted, no mysterious leaps in understanding. 8 months, Dr. Mintara said wonderingly. You developed this in 8 months. Actually 6 months, Rodriguez corrected. The last 2 months were just field testing and minor adjustments. Ambassador Zeekstal pulled up his own files. The Vorthok historical records indicate they spent over 800 years developing similar techniques. Perhaps, Sarah suggested carefully. The Vorthok approached the problem differently than we did. We had the advantage of computer modeling and several centuries of accumulated scientific knowledge. Show them Formation Gamma 9, Commander Park whispered to Rodriguez. The tactical officer loaded new data into the projector. This is Formation Gamma 9, which we use for medical evacuation scenarios. It's designed to provide maximum shield coverage while maintaining maneuverability in hostile environments. The aliens stared at the display in shock. Formation Gamma 9 created the same energy field patterns as one of the Vorthok's most devastating attack formations, but the humans had developed it specifically to protect wounded personnel during evacuation. You're using a pattern capable of destroying entire squadrons to protect medical transports. Admiral Keth Era said faintly. Well, yes, Sarah replied. Wounded people can't protect themselves, so their evacuation ships need the best defensive systems we can provide. Chief Historian Resonance of Ages materialized suddenly, startling everyone in the chamber. The ancient being had been analyzing the human data in real time, cross-referencing it with archived Vorthok information. Captain Chen, the historian's voice resonated with profound significance. I need to share something with you. May I display some very old archaeological data? Of course. The air filled with new holograms showing ancient ruins on a dozen different worlds. These weren't the gleaming cities the council representatives were familiar with. These were far older, more primitive structures. These are the earliest known Vorthok settlements, Resonance of Ages explained. Note the architectural patterns, the tool designs, the artistic motifs. Sarah studied the displays, feeling a strange sense of familiarity. The ruins looked almost human. The proportions were right for human-sized beings. The doorways and corridors designed for bipedal creatures of human height. Now observe this, the historian continued, displaying genetic analysis data. We recently completed advanced DNA extraction from organic materials found at these sites. The genetic sequences appeared on screen, and Commander Park inhaled sharply. Those markers. They're remarkably similar to human DNA. Not similar. Resonance of Ages corrected. Identical in key sequences. The Vorthok were not aliens, Captain Chen. They were human. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Sarah felt the universe shift around her as the implications crashed home. That's impossible, she whispered. Humans have only been in space for a few centuries. Modern humans. Yes, the historian agreed. But our dating indicates the Vorthak civilization existed between 12 and 15,000 years ago. They appear to have been an early human diaspora that left Earth long before your recorded history. Council Speaker Orthian's light flickered rapidly. Are you saying that humans have done this before? I'm saying that humans appear to follow predictable patterns of tactical development. The Vorthak developed their formations through the same logical, methodical approach we've observed in modern humanity. The difference is that the ancient humans used their capabilities for conquest. Sarah's mind raced as she processed this revelation. What happened to them? The Vorthok, I mean. They disappeared suddenly, about 12,000 years ago. No one knows why. Some theories suggest they simply left this region of space. Others believe they destroyed themselves through internal conflict. The truth was lost with them. Admiral Cathara's tentacles writhed with a new kind of fear. So, humans aren't just developing Vorthak techniques. They are Vorthak, returning to reclaim what their ancestors once controlled. No, Sarah said firmly. We're not the same people. Modern humanity developed independently on Earth. We have no memory of the Vorthok, no inherited knowledge of their techniques. What you're seeing is simply human nature applied to military problems. Which may be worse, Dr. Mintara observed. If both ancient and modern humans naturally develop these capabilities, then it's an inherent characteristic of your species. The aliens exchanged worried glances. The revelation that humans might be genetically predisposed to developing devastating military techniques was terrifying enough. But Sarah's next words changed everything. You're missing the crucial difference, she said quietly. The ancient humans used these formations for conquest. We developed them for protection. Formation Delta 7 protects merchant ships. Formation Gamma 9 protects medical evacuations. Formation Beta 12 protects diplomatic missions. She stood up, addressing the entire chamber. Every formation we've developed has a defensive purpose. We're not building weapons of conquest. We're building tools of protection. The same techniques that the Vorthok used to destroy, we use to preserve. Commander Park nodded enthusiastically. That's exactly right. Human military doctrine has evolved beyond simple destruction. We see these formations as ways to protect what matters to us. Trade, medical aid, diplomacy, exploration. The chamber was quiet as the council representatives absorbed this perspective. The same capabilities that had once terrorized the galaxy were being used by modern humans to safeguard the things that made civilization possible. What assurance do we have? Intelligence Director Psylocke asked slowly. That humans will continue using these capabilities for protection rather than conquest. Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Because that's who we are now. We've learned from our own history on Earth. We know that conquest ultimately destroys both conqueror and conquered. Modern humanity is interested in building, not breaking. Council Speaker Orthyan pulsed with warm golden light. Captain Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I would like to offer humanity full membership in our organization, with access to all historical archives and archaeological sites. We accept, Sarah replied immediately. But I should warn you. We're going to keep developing new formations. It's what we do. The difference is that we'll be developing them to protect everyone, not just ourselves. As the meeting concluded and treaties were signed, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the irony. The galaxy had been terrified that humans were becoming the next Vorthok. In a way, they were right. Humans were reclaiming their ancient heritage, but they were also proving that evolution could work in reverse, that a species once devoted to conquest could learn to dedicate that same brilliance to protection. Later, as the defiant Resolve prepared to depart Meridian Point, Rodriguez approached her with a grin. Captain, I've been thinking about the diplomatic escort formation we're developing. Formation Beta 12 could probably be adapted for protecting first contact missions, Sarah finished. I was thinking the same thing. Draft the specifications when we get back. The galaxy had gained not just a powerful new ally, but a protector whose greatest strength lay not in their ability to destroy, but in their refusal to do so.